In this lecture, you will learn what is a query parameter, how to pass a query parameter to a route, and then how to retrieve the value of a query parameter from the route. So basically, query parameters allows us to pass optional parameters like page number, product name, etc. to the component. So what is a query parameter? Query parameters are the optional parameters that we pass to a route. And these query parameters are added at the end of the URL separated by a question mark. So for example, in this URL, this ID and this name are the query parameters. Okay, so we specify a query parameter after the question mark. Now, in the last lecture, we learned about route parameters. So what is the difference between a route parameter and a query parameter? Well, the route parameters are required and is used by Angular router to determine the route, and they are part of the route definition. So here in this route definition, here we are specifying a route parameter. This ID is the route parameter. So route parameters are the part of the route definition, and these route parameters are required. So for this route, the value for this ID parameter is required. If we don't pass the value for this ID parameter, we will get an error. But query parameters are optional parameters. If the query parameter is missing in the URL, then it will not stop Angular from navigating to the route. And query parameters are not part of the route definition. Okay, so this is the difference between query parameter and route parameter. Now let's understand query parameter with an example. So let's go to our Angular application. Here I am in the courses page. Now when I click on the show detail button of one of these courses, we are navigated to the details of that course. Okay, so here we are displaying the details of that course. Now what I want is, let's say I'm the author of this course and I want to change the name of this course. So in this page, I want to have an edit button, and when I click on that edit button, this name should be updatable. Okay, so as an author, I should be able to edit the name of this course. Let's see how to achieve this functionality. So let's go to VS Code and let's open course component.html file. Here we are displaying the name of this course. Okay, so after this h1 element, let me add a div, and inside this div, let's add an input element of type text. And let's bind this input element with this course name property. So for that, let's use two-way data binding. So let's bind this ng model to this course name. So let's copy this course.name and let's bind this input element with that course name. All right. Now let's also comment this anchor element here, and let's add a button element. Okay, and here let's say edit. Let's save the changes. Let's go to the web page. So here you can see a text box and a button element has been added. Let me also provide some style for this div. So let's simply set the text align to center. Save the changes again, and now it looks fine. All right, now what we want is, initially when the page loads, we want to display the name of the course. But when the user clicks on this edit button, in that case, this text box should be displayed where we can update the name of the course. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, inside the course component class, I'm going to create a new property. Let's call it maybe edit mode. It is going to be of type Boolean, and let's set its value to false. So initially the value of this edit mode is false. Now let's go to course component.html, and on this h1 element, let's add ng if directive. And to this, let's assign this edit mode, the edit mode property. Now, what we want is, when this edit mode property is false, then we want to display this h1 element. So here before this edit mode property, let's use this not operator. But if this edit mode is true, in that case, we want to display this div. So let me copy this ngif directive from here and let's use it here. And here, let's remove this not operator. With this, let's save the changes. Let's go to the web page. So you will notice that initially this h1 element is visible, but the text box is not visible. Now, if I change the value of this edit mode to true, in that case, the text box will be visible, but h1 element will not be visible. Okay, so we want to display this text box when the user clicks on this edit button. So let's set the initial value of this edit mode to false, and let's go to course component.html. And here on this button element, let's add router link directive. Okay, and let's wrap it within square brackets. And to this, let's assign an array. Inside this array, let's specify the path for this router link. So it is going to be courses slash course. Okay, and we also want to append the ID. So ID we can get from this course object. So here we can say course.id. Okay, so this will set the path for this router link. Now we also want to pass some query parameters. For that, we can use another directive, which is query params. Okay, and this is also an attribute directive, so we can wrap it within square brackets. And to this, we can pass an object, and inside that object, we need to specify the query parameter and its value as a key value pair. So here I want to have a query parameter called edit, and I'm going to set its value to true. Okay, now if you want to have more query parameters, then you can use comma and then specify the query parameter name and its value like this. Okay, now here I only want to have one query parameter, which is edit. So I will remove this second query parameter. With this, let's save the changes. Let's go to the web page. And here we have misspelled this router link. So it should be router link. Let's save the changes again. Okay, so the error is gone. And just notice what happens in this URL when I click on this edit button. So currently it is displaying courses slash course slash the ID of that course, which is 103. Now when I click on this edit button, you will notice that that query parameter has been appended here. So after this question mark, we have this query parameter name edit, and it is set to true. Okay, so in this way, we can pass a query parameter to a route. Now, we can also pass a query parameter to a route programmatically. Let's see that also. So I will comment this button element and I will add a new button element. Okay, and on this button element, let's bind click event. And to this click event, let's assign a method. And let's call this method maybe append query param. Let's go ahead and let's define this method in the component class. So let's go to course component. Here I will create this method. Inside this method, we want to use navigate method. Now we have learned that in order to use navigate method, we need an instance of router class. So let's inject an instance of router class here. So inside this constructor, inside the, where we are specifying the parameters for the constructor, let's create a private parameter. Let's call it router, and it is going to be of type router. And in order to use this router class, we also need to import it from Angular/router. Now let's access this router instance. So we can say this dot router, and on this let's call navigate method. Now to this navigate method, again we can pass an array. Inside this we can specify the path for the route. So it is going to be slash courses slash course. Then we also need to append the ID of the course. So we are storing the ID of the course in this course ID property. So here let's say this dot course ID. Then we can specify the query parameter as the second parameter for the navigate method. So here we'll use object literal syntax. Inside this, we use a property called query params. And to this query params, we again assign an object, and inside this, we can specify the query parameters as a key value pair. So here, let's use this edit. So this is our query parameter, and let's set it to true. Okay, and again, if you want to specify more query parameters, you can use comma and then specify the query parameters as a key value pair. But here I will keep only one query parameter. Let's save the changes. Let's go to the web page. Let's go back to courses. Let's click on this show detail button. And here the route is courses/course/103, which is the ID of this course. Now, when I click on the edit button, it should append the query selector before this ID. So here I don't see this edit text here, but still I will click on this button and you will notice that that query parameter has been appended after this question mark. So in this way also you can pass a query parameter to a route. Now let's check why it is. Okay, so for this button we have not specified any value, so let's say edit. Alright, so we learned how to pass a query parameter to a route. Now let's learn how to retrieve the value of a query parameter from the route. So let's go to course component, this course component class. And again, there are two ways to retrieve the value of a query parameter, using snapshot property and by using an observable. So let's first see how to access the value of the query parameter using snapshot property. So on this activated route, we have the snapshot property. So let's say this dot activated route dot snapshot dot, and on this snapshot property we can call a map, and the map is query param map. Okay, so this is a map which will store the query parameters as a key value pair. Now we can get the value of a query parameter by using this get method, and to this we can pass the name of the query parameter. So here the name of the query parameter is edit, and this will return the value of this edit query parameter. Now let's store that value inside this edit mode property. So let's say this dot edit mode equals this value. So it is this dot edit mode. And the type of this edit mode is Boolean, but this expression will return a string value. Okay, so we need to convert that string value to Boolean type. For that, let's pass this expression to this Boolean constructor. With this, let's save the changes. Let's go to the web page. Let's open the detail of one of these courses. And let's click on this edit button and let's see if this course name is editable or not. So currently you can see this is the route. Now when I click on this edit button, that query parameter has been appended to that route, but this name is still not editable. So why is that? That's because we are setting the value of this edit mode property inside this ng on init. And we have learned that this ng on init gets executed only once, and that is when the component is fully initialized. So when the component is initialized, at that time, this query parameter was not there, right? So let me go back to the courses page and let me click on the show detail button. So when I click on the show detail button, an instance of the course component will be created. Now in the route, do we have the edit query parameter? No, we don't have. So here, this expression where we are setting this edit mode, it will return, this expression will return null. Okay. And we are converting that null to a Boolean type. So that null, since null is a falsy value, that will be converted to false, and that will be assigned to this edit mode. And then when I'm clicking on this edit button, this query parameter has been appended here, but this ng on init will not get called this time. So the updated value will not be assigned to this edit mode. Okay, let's see that. Let's say console.log and let's log this dot edit mode. If I save the changes, if I go to the web page, let's see what happens. So let's first go to this courses page. Let's click on this show detail of one of these courses and let's open developer console. So you can see false has been logged here. Okay, now when I click on this edit button, nothing is logged here. That's because this ng on init has not been called. Okay, so now instead of using the snapshot property, what we can do is we can use an observable. So for that, again on this activated route, we can call query param map. Now this time we are calling this query param map on this activated route. Here we call this query param map on this snapshot property. So this query param map returns a map, but this query param map returns an observable, as you can see here. And to this observable, we can subscribe using subscribe method. To this, let's pass a callback function which will get executed whenever this observable returns a new value. And inside this, let's say this dot edit mode equals, and here it will receive the value. So let's call it param, and this param is going to be a map. So on this param, let's call get method, and to this get method, let's pass the name of the query parameter, which is edit. Let's save the changes. And again, we need to convert it to Boolean type because it is going to return a string. Okay, with this, let's save the changes. Let's go to the web page and let's go to courses first. Then let's click on one of these courses. Okay, so now when I click on this edit button, so currently you see this is the route. So the ID of this course is 106. Now when I click on this edit button, you can see this query parameter has been appended here to this route, and now this course name is also editable. Okay, so since we have used an observable here, since we have subscribed to an observable, whenever the value of that observable will change, that value will be assigned to this edit mode property. So that's why using this observable is better approach. Now, if the value of your query parameter is not going to change, in that case, you can also use the snapshot property. All right. So now our functionality is working as expected. Okay, so when I click on this edit button, you will notice that now this course name is editable. Let's do one more thing. Let's also add an update button. So let's go to course component.html and let's add a new button element, and let's call this button element update. Okay, and on this button element, let's bind click event. And when this click event happens, let's say we want to set the edit mode property to false. Okay, let's save the changes. Let's go back to the web page. Let me close this console here. Let's first go to courses component. Let's click on the show detail of one of these courses. Let's click on edit and let's change the name of this course. So let's just append this test here and click on this update button. So you can see the course name has been updated and the text box has disappeared, and now it is displaying the course name, the h1 element. But here in the URL, we are still seeing this query parameter. So what I want is when the user clicks on this update button, the course name should be updated and this query parameter should also be removed from the URL. So for that, what we can do is let's add this router link directive here. And to this, let's first wrap this router link within square brackets. And to this, let's specify the route as courses slash course, and this should be within single quotes. Okay, and then we also want to append the ID of the course. So let's use comma, and to get the ID again we can say course.id. Okay, let's save the changes. Let's go to the web page again. Let me go back to courses. Let's click on the show detail of one of these courses. Let's click on edit. Let's change the name to test 1. Let's click on update. So currently this query parameter is appended here. Now when I click on this update, name has been updated and that query parameter has also been removed from here. Alright, so in this lecture you learned what is a query parameter, how to pass a query parameter to a route, and then how to retrieve the value of a query parameter from the route.